Hi, everybody. See, we still have some people trickling in, so I think we can probably go ahead and get started here today. A little bit of an introduction and wait for everyone to make it. First and foremost, just want to say thanks to everyone for engaging with us, taking the time to sign up. I know scheduling is always tricky, and want to make sure that we are effectively using all of everyone's time here. So thank you again for setting this aside and engaging with myself and my team and joining us while we go through our webinar today. As you know, as you've gotten here by talking to us, we want to start today and just really look at the architecture industry and how BigTime works as a tool to help solve all those problems that we continue to see, people in the industry facing. A little background on myself here. So I'm a senior account exec with BigTime, just going on, I think, about 3 years now at this point. Definitely flies. Work with firms like yours every single day, and want to kind of take what I know about you, your firms, the industry, and I think most importantly, the BigTime product here and how we can apply that to you. And let's see people still trickling in one by one. So thanks to those who are just joining us here today. We're just past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and want to jump right into product today and what we're going to help you solve. So let me start sharing my screen. Make sure we can all see my screen. Got it. Good deal. Again, to those that just joined, my name's Ty, Senior Account Exec here at BigTime. I'm going to be covering how we help architecture firms like yours simplify, streamline, automate workflow. We've got a couple other members of my team on today. You should be able to, see them over there. Jacob Wilson, who is our sales manager, going to be fielding questions as we go through today. So you should see the option to raise your hand, engage in chat. He is a solid guy and is going to pass through those that are relevant to what we're talking about at the time. So hopefully be able to get those answered on the fly. And then we'll hold on to anything else, and we want to end with a little bit of Q&A at the end of the call. So it's a little different for me, kind of speaking, not having someone live there to engage with on the other line. I love interaction on things like this. Love answering those questions. So please shout those out whenever they come up. Definitely want to feel like, you are here with me on this, and we can, keep it as engaging as possible. My plan today is really just go through what we call the critical path of BigTime. We want to go through and touch on a few different aspects here. I know we have a wide array of people on the call today, ranging from, accountants, bookkeepers, project managers, operations managers. We're going to cover a ton of content. It may not all be specific to you at the time, but just hang in there. And like I said, we'll be sure to hit those points you need to focus on, and then make sure we bring it all together in the end. When we're going through the critical path today, so we're going to touch on some tools like QuickBooks integration, Salesforce. Don't want to jump in too deep on those, but I know those are extremely popular tools to have in your tech stack out there, and want to just show how we can speak to those. And, the goal is to really simplify, streamline, and automate as much of this as possible, right? So having multiple systems there in place, things aren't talking to each other. That's where I see most of these problems come in. So I'm always really big on like a single point of entry, real-time reporting on all of this, and really, free up your time to do that billable work, right? Just because you are architects doesn't necessarily mean you want to spend all of your time doing the mundane of, tracking the time and generating those reports. That's what we are here for. And, I'm always going to be speaking from a position of wanting to empower the right people at your team to have access to that information, and just, make that the easy part, right? Quick reference, bringing everything in that tech stack together, putting the right information in front of the right people. All right. So first thing to do today is just want to go through, what it's like to hit that QuickBooks integration. We'll set up a quick project, manage team members across that. We'll be able to look at our, phases, budgets, go through quickly the time and expense entry portion, want to generate an invoice based off of this as well, and then finally land on some reports. And again, that's going to be specific to accounting, project management, and really how we can share those reports with the right people to eliminate as much of that unnecessary noise and lines of communication as we can. So let's jump right in. What you're looking at on my screen here, this is just the BigTime login screen when I'm logged into this account as an admin. If I open this up, you'll see my BigTime architect firm. That's me, Ty. I am the admin of this firm. So when I log in, I'm going to have a little bit more authority over, what your general staff and end users are going to see. I have the overhead view of everything going on in my firm. Up at the top, access to all these tabs for time and expense tracking, workflow, invoicing. If you're a QuickBooks user, you'll see this tab, that ability to push and pull to and from QuickBooks, full report capabilities as the admin, and then finally access to this My Company tab. So My Company is where we're going to hold our project data, our staff data, all of our BigTime account settings. Not everyone needs all these permissions when they log in, right? This is for the power users of BigTime. And then we want to be able to customize those logins based off of the needs of that end user. So just to give you a quick peek of the same BigTime architects firm, but logged in as an end user, this is Cooper. So Cooper is a member of my team. He's not a real person, but he's on my team nonetheless. Cooper is just a general staff member for me. His job is to log in, get his time in, get his expenses in, submit those timesheets, hit his goals and be done, right? In and out of BigTime, super simple. So Cooper's view is going to be a little bit different. When he logs in, his home screen is going to take him straight to this timesheet. No QuickBooks, no invoicing, none of those account settings. And then this report tab, we're only going to expose reports that we make public or be able to share specific reports with him or his user group. Really quickly, back on the admin account, just to let you know, those user rights are totally customizable. We're going to go through today as myself, the admin. Cooper falls in that everyone category. And then you can customize any groups in between. And just a super quick peek at all these different security settings we can flip on and off. So we're always going to be in control of who's logging into BigTime, and most importantly, what they can and can't have access to once they are here in the account. All right, so I'm going to straight to my project list. I've done a little bit of prep work today, so I thought it'd be a little bit of a time save to kind of work with an existing or ongoing project rather than just kind of start from scratch. But here on this project list, we're going to have a list of everything going on in the firm. What I like about this is it's just a super simple search feature. So we can start typing any part of a client name, any part of a project name. Whoop, there we go. Client name, project name, and it'll take us straight to what we're looking for here. I've creatively called this my architecture webinar client, and then added 311 South Wacker as the project that we're going to be working on today. So project dashboard here. First thing to point out is you are, again, connected to QuickBooks. You'll see this little pop-up here that says, hey, this isn't in QuickBooks. We're going to push it over there, but before we do that, a couple things we want to start doing here in BigTime first, just to make sure we're then not having to go over there and update any info in multiple systems. So my quick view of this project dashboard, going to show me my project name, my project ID. I have this set to auto-generate and just do the year in a random sequential, but we can, format that so it's going to piggyback off of any existing system that you do have. Want to go in and start, throwing in types. Anytime you're seeing these orange arrows in BigTime, it's going to let you customize the values in that field. So when I was thinking about this call today and going through, I was like, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about are definitely going to be maybe a bit, I think, diluted, just to kind of please the masses here, right? And the great thing about BigTime is that we're going to have that ability to bend to meet the needs of your firm, right? So a lot of these customizations are really quick, simple things that you can do to not have to change anything in your process. And then more importantly, maybe add some layers that you might currently be missing out on. If you are just doing something in Excel or you're using a competitor product, a lot of times you don't have the ability to, match what you want and find yourself being kind of forced into pre-existing structures or just, not having that structure altogether. So in BigTime, again, these drop downs here give you that ability to make sure that, the language matches your language, the, fields match what you need to report on. This type here, we're calling this a commercial structure. We'll call back to this whenever we end the call on some reports, but love being able to kind of group my projects together by type, by service offering. A few other fields down here, I'm calling them division, cost center to location. You customize the headers, you customize the values underneath. So we're always able to, start applying these report filters at the project level from the get-go here in BigTime. We can track statuses on projects as well. So maybe if something is still in that bidding or proposal stage, we want to be able to segment that, but maybe hop in and start doing a little bit of scope on this, seeing what resources we might need, and then, be able to flip that to an active or in-process project when the time is right. Billing statuses, due dates, room for notes on this, invoice notes to carry over. And then down at the bottom, going back to that customization, the ability to create custom fields. So I've thrown a PO number on here that we're going to pull through for our invoice. Custom fields can be drop downs. They could be dates on a calendar. And then also super common to see some hyperlinks maybe to outside document storage or anything outside of BigTime. And then I know I mentioned QuickBooks. We'll get it over there. One thing I want to do beforehand is just hit this contact info tab. Nothing super revolutionary here. We want to throw in that address, contact information, and then any direct contacts for this project. So I've added myself on here. And you are able to add multiple contacts. You can distinguish between the type or the role that they're going to play over there. Because I just threw myself on, flagged me as the billing contact. So when we go to send that invoice out, we'll know to send it to me. And hopefully I will pay it. So once that's in, we go ahead and add this over to QuickBooks. I'm connected to a QuickBooks desktop file today. Doesn't matter if you are on the desktop version, if you are on the online version, we have the best of breed QuickBooks integration out there on the market. And I think the huge perk there is that we can, exchange the same information with both that desktop and online version. It's a little bit of different functionality between the two, whichever version your firm is on. We never want you to have to change that accounting system just to be able to use a project management software, right? So QuickBooks Desktop, I'm going to do a quick little sync over here in our tool, and we can come back to that later. But the big thing is we'll just see this go from waiting to sync to a direct connection over there as well. If you're a Salesforce user, workflow might be a little bit different for you. We would, of course, want to manage this project in your pipeline, have that opportunity stage, maybe trigger the creation of the project, or just manually push that over, and then be able to have the connection from that Salesforce install package to our project here in BigTime as well. All right. And I'm going to work left to right across these tabs. Team tab. This is where the fun stuff is going to start. All right. We have a project, we've added that here, we've pushed it over to QuickBooks, but now we need to start working on it, right? We need to get our budgets in. We need to know who's available to work this. This team tab is pretty versatile. Not only is it saying, hey, these, 4, 5, 20 people are going to be working on this project. It's also where we can start identifying the roles that they're going to play and start assigning some of the management authority in BigTime so that the right people can, have the right access to this project. Another thing I see coming up all the time is, when it comes to just simply tracking time, errors, right? Just not making it easy for the staff to get there. A thing I like to do in my account, it's a quick security setting, is to have it in place so that if you're not on this project team, you're not going to see this project on your timesheet, right? If you don't need to track time to it, then we're just not going to put it in front of you. The idea there is if we can eliminate the room to make mistakes, hopefully less will happen. The easier we can make that time tracking for everyone, the more successful it's going to be. Doesn't have to be the case. It's also common in firms to need to, wear a lot of hats, right? And hop from project to project. You may be outside the team, but you need to hop on one day and lend a hand. So not necessary to make that limitation, but just something I like to have in place on my account here. These roles, again, these are customizable. So you'll see some probably familiar looking roles here, and I think I have a handful of others, but you'll build those out to match the roles over there at your firm. I've grabbed Kara over here on my team. I've assigned her the project manager role. This is going to be the title, that report filter, and then I've also checked this lead checkbox for her. So this could do a couple of different things, or it does do a few different things. This is giving her that management authority in BigTime. Maybe she can add team members to this project. Maybe she could add change orders. Maybe she needs to review and approve time that staff sends on this. That's the difference between the checkbox and the role. But again, just want to start making these assignments here at the project level so that, when it comes time to, get this time in, it's all going to go to the right place, timesheet's going to be set up, and everyone will be looking along. All right, so bill rates. Another huge struggle I see, right? Whether you are trying to get this done in QuickBooks or getting that time in Excel, or again, using another product out there that just doesn't have a lot of flexibility. BigTime handles bill rates in quite a few ways. I think the first here that I default to is just like a staff rate. And again, this is one of those areas where it's going to be unique to your firm. It's also going to be unique to the project itself, right? I know that not everyone just gets to bill out at the same rate, every single project across the board. Any of those exceptions that come up, we do want to be able to handle. But if we just start from the top down here in BigTime, I'm going to pop over to my staff record really quickly. And here in the staff record, we'll go into Cooper's profile. Together by department, why not? Any of these headers here, by the way, just give those a quick click, do some quick subtotaling for you. And we can find Cooper. And on that record, this is where we keep that staff info, name, title. We can assign a default role to him as well. See that QuickBooks integration, and then start doing some capacity here, right? So whenever we want to do that utilization reporting, this is what we'll report against. 160 is assuming full-time, but can be different if it's just a part-time or a contractor. Want to throw in a cost rate for staff as well. Cost and profitability reporting, factoring in that labor cost right here on the staff record, assigned to departments, and then billing rates right down here. Up to 5 defaults per staffer in BigTime. You get to rename these. So I have a primary, discount, a premium, a D, and an E. Cooper's primarily going to bill out at 140 bucks. So back on our bill rates tab, again, that primary is what we default to. But you'll have the option to pull from a labor code, do a flat rate, and then the custom bill rate table is going to give you that flexibility project to project to accommodate for any of those exceptions, when they come up. I've gone in here and just done some basic roles by rate, but you could have this be by a staff member, by a role, by a labor code if you're using those, or a work code, or specific to any phase, right? And the goal here is just to, again, give you that total flexibility to have a bill rate be variable by staff, by role, by phase, as you go through from contract to contract and come across those crazy exceptions. All right, so our phases. Phase editor, this is just a quick overhead view. I'm gonna open up this editor here. This should match that scope of work. At the end of the day, we wanna bring in as much, like project management as we can, right? And eliminate needing to track these budgets through, multiple reports, or not have to do any data massaging. So, what we're doing today on this call is definitely a bit on the admin heavy side to get this all set up. But that's the great thing about BigTime, right? Is that you set it up once correctly. When you're flying through this, you'll be able to get to this point in, 5-6 minutes rather than the, I think, 15 that I'm going on while I kind of talk through the step-by-step. But we set this up once. It's going to configure everything else moving forward. And then all those reporting pieces will fall right into place. Great thing with architecture firms is, working from, typically a standard set of phases, right? It may change as we go from project to project. We may not always be doing one of these phases. I've pre-built these, but I also throw a quick template in here as well. so that you can go ahead and just build out your SD, DD, CD, and every time you create a new project, not have to go in line by line. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just throwing some budgets into those phases of design. So copy and paste those over. Fee breakdown right here, and then hourly estimates as well. This is what I'd say like a pretty complete setup. You know, and I see a lot of firms handle this differently. You know, not everyone scopes out hours. Not everyone needs to do due date tracking or make these individual assignments. Nothing here is critical per se. I mean, outside of the phase name, but the more data we have in here, you know, the more detailed reports we're going to be able to get. So fees, hours, I've assigned due dates, and I've made some staff assignments on here as well. From this point, you know, if we know these due dates, we know these hours, we're going to be able to, you know, get a little bit of a visual timeline of this project delivery, right? So Gantt charts, I mean, always comes up. Everybody needs to see this, totally understand. So super easy to populate this in BigTime. Do those task or phase dependencies here. What I did before the call was create these, and then I just like a quick snapshot of this to create a baseline. Right, so if you all complete your projects on the day that they are originally scheduled to be completed, good for you. If you're like everybody else and that schedule shifts and changes and things get pushed back, this is a great way to be able to track what we are track against what we had originally scoped, right? So what you're going to see here is that original baseline from the project creation, and then over time, you know, things get pushed back. We're able to look at that side by side of where we currently are compared to, you know, where this was in theory on paper when we initially kicked it off. And to build on this even further, we are looking at, you know, the Pro and Premier versions of BigTime today. You know, if we are needing to do a bit more like resourcing or resource management on this, you know, it's great to have a bucket of hours here to report on, to track against, but also want to cover how we can start doing some forecasting on this. You know, of these 160 hours, who needs to work them? When does this need to be done? That's when the allocations tab is going to be a great tool to use. So here's just another quick visual of this project from the top down. Everybody loves to see things, you know, it's great to report on them, but also super important to just put that quick visual right in front of you. What we're looking at here is the hourly scope on this, right? The gray being the original budget, and then the BigTime orange there being the actuals we input against it. On this total project level here, and then this is by each of those staffers. But if I go here to edit this allocation, this is where we can really start to plan this in advance. What we're looking at here is our original phase from that phase editor. And then we see that 160-hour bucket that we've scoped out. And we're just able to go in and assign those hours. I'm on a monthly view right now. If you need this on a bit more of a detailed view, we can always toggle between weekly and monthly. Just depends on how you're doing that resourcing, right? It's pretty common in my experience to see a lot of like weekly resource meetings, you know, do some quick project updates, check out where everyone's at, who's available. If that's the case, flip this over to weekly. But if you just want to get started and start taking like a high level view on this, start at the month, throw those targets in there, and get some future sight on this. So I went in and, you know, I knew who I needed to work on this. You know, we've already been working on this project. So in the month of July, August, I've given Kara 40 hours and 40 hours. She's my, again, my project manager. But a great example of using this kind of like on the fly is right here, where we see, you know, we have a designer for 80 hours. I know I need a designer. I don't know who that should be at this point. So I think one super helpful handy thing BigTime can do is, you know, kind of suggest based off of what we know and who's available in those roles that we've identified, who that designer should be. So if I switch this view up and I break this down by staff member instead of phase, that's where I'll be able to see that designer role. And so I need them on SD and then on design development for a bucket of hours here. The suggestion option is what I was talking about. Right, so this is going to look at anyone who has that role assigned to them of designer. It's going to show you their availability to work based off of the capacity that we've set, and then show you what they can and can't do. So I mean, Cooper looks like a great candidate here to pick up these hours. So just a quick flip changes everything that we had flagged as designer and all those initial hours that were associated to it over to Cooper's name. When we save this, quite a few options right here. I mean, we can update those assignments, which is just going to say, hey, Cooper, you're assigned to this phase. It can trigger a notification for him, can put the due dates and assignment on a quick dashboard for him to access. So we want to do that. We want to put him on that project team as well, since he's joining us. If we need to change budgets, hourly or fee, we can do it. And then right down here, we're going to see revenue recognition. So it's pretty common to struggle with those projections, right? So what BigTime can do, if you have these hours allocated, is start to give them to you. I look at this in a few ways. I mean, really simple, just a project level, I think is helpful. And we can also break this out by, if we click this little arrow here, a couple different options, right? So if you want to do just a really simple calculation of the rate times the forecasted hours, perfect. Or we can do a fixed fee projection on this. So just taking that total budget for that phase and then distributing that based off of the weight of the hours ahead of time. So we save, we come back to our dashboard. We've got Cooper on here, hasn't tracked any time, but he will. All right. All right, trying to multitask and read some questions as they come in here. Good. Oh, and someone says, what about additional services? Perfect. So in that case, whether it's me, the admin, or Kara, my project manager, let's go right back to this phase editor. And so we're going to do these as like a percent complete bill or progress, milestone, whatever we want to do. I've actually flagged that behind the scenes. We can drill down into these phases. And on our accounting tab right here, I can say this phase is going to be billed percent complete. And then we bring on add services or a change order. Add services, no budget. Maybe we'll, because of my settings, we'll go ahead and put Cooper on this team. Why not? Open this up. Let me save it first. Go to edit this, and then that's going to default to that time and materials. Perfect. All right. So now this is all done. I said again, that's the admin view of this, of just getting this created. Definitely like a step by step, and is going to move a little bit faster when you are up and running and fully trained on this. Everything else from here should fall right into place. So when it comes time to put this time on the timesheet, we're going to go over to our timesheet. This should be the easy part here, right? These blank rows are things we've tracked time to in the past week. That'll carry over. We can start fresh here. And I can see a total project list right here, or again, that quick search. Find our 311 South Wacker. Myself, maybe we're just going to work on some schematic design. Today is Wednesday. Let's do an hour and a half. And I love to type notes. Apparently not spelled correctly. I've gone ahead and put some time in from that project team. I think didn't want to spend too much time on how to track time on this. Like I said, it should be super simple. The big takeaway here is that project list and that phase dropdown is going to be dependent upon the project setup, right? My staffer's view is a little bit different. So if I bring Cooper's profile back over and we do a quick little refresh here, Cooper adds a row. He opens up that project. I've only assigned him to 3 of those phases. So again, just removing those opportunities for errors. He only needs to work on schematic design, design development. Perfect. Maybe he's working on this. Actually, let's do some add services. 5. Oh boy. Go. A few more on Friday ahead of time. on the timesheets in BigTime, just 2 stages to this, right? We're going to be able to view these hours that are input. We can report on them, but we're not going to have this shown as WIP just yet, right? At this stage, that staffer, Cooper in this case, he can still come in here and say, that wasn't 4.5, that was 5.5. He can edit notes. So we go through and we collect the time on, daily, weekly basis. But at some point, we just need to have the staff submit that time back to you. So that submission process based off of your timesheet submission period, again, customizable to you. When this is passed over from Cooper, that could kick off a couple different workflows for you, right? Maybe it's just initially locked. Let's refresh here. Locked from Cooper. So no more changes or edits from him. It could go straight to that WIP folder, or if you or your firm needs to have like an approval workflow in place, that's what would begin that process as well. So maybe it goes to Kara to review and approve time for that project. Maybe it goes straight to the admin. If you need to have like a multi-level approval in place, BigTime can accommodate that as well, setting up to 3 different levels of approval. So maybe first by that project manager, then by that department manager, then it's getting kicked over to admin. Don't want to add the steps if we don't need to, but definitely want to be able to, make sure that if something, how should I say this? Rather than try to solve a problem like after it's already happened, want to make sure we have the right steps in place to prevent that problem from even happening, right? So if you've got some folks who are, struggling to get the right hours on, or they're struggling to get the notes in a presentable, readable form that we get to put on an invoice, let's go ahead and kick that through to the project manager, admin, keep a pair of eyes on it, and then only, invoice that whenever it's been through the proper levels. All right, expense tracking in BigTime, it's going to work very similar to that time entry portion, except here we're going to be choosing this expense type, right? So quick search, we have mileage. Again, if you are a QuickBooks user, these are going to be linked to your items or accounts over there in QuickBooks. If we're tracking those reimbursables, like great way to have the staff just kick these into BigTime. You'd be able to post that over to QuickBooks and then cut those checks for reimbursables right out of QB. Project. All customizable as well. I think 58.5 is the current, but if not, you can change that. We can do expense markup on this. I mean, if you're marking up printing costs, totally up to you, except don't want to dive too deep on the setup and how to, but just know that these expense types and codes are all custom to you, can directly link to those items or accounts in QB. We can handle that expense markup as we go through. Put that on that add services, drove to and from client site. Let's and if this was maybe a flight or something that we needed to include a receipt on, this can be great to work from the mobile app as well. In that case, there's going to be a little camera icon right here. You can just open your camera, grab a quick image of that receipt. I'm going to go ahead and just do an upload. If I can find my photos, there we go. And we'll grab a quick PDF receipt image. And then same workflow process here, right? It's just like time. It's entered, we can report on it, but it's not submitted just yet. When you or the staffers are submitting these expense reports, you're just going to give it a quick name. Webinar expenses. Quick access to these, if you are on the admin and billing side of things, we can easily just track all these expense reports. Here's a quick PDF if we need to get that out with these receipt images on there. And then I think most importantly, we're going to be able to track this in WIP and then pull all this data onto an invoice. Small little receipt there. Everybody zoom in. All right, so back on my admin account over here, we've done a ton of stuff at this point, right? We've set up a project, we've set budgets and hourly estimates, assigned the team, found out who is available to work, like scoped out those hours, and put the time and expenses in. So at this point in the workflow, right, we need to worry about how do we get this on an invoice, how do we get that out, and how do we get the money in. Invoicing in BigTime is going to take you to this screen right here with 3 buckets to start. First, we have our unbilled work in progress. As we move through that workflow, we'll see drafted and final invoices, and then finally that AR aging. WIP management is a huge concern with everyone, right? We've gone through all the trouble of, getting our time and expenses in, but how do we manage that, right? How do we make sure we're not losing any of our time? I mean, that is what we're selling, right? At the end of the day, we've taken the time to track it. Now we need to make sure that we get that on an invoice and we get the money in. We click on this WIP bucket right here, and I have a handful of projects with billable time and expenses on them. I'm a big fan of these advanced filters over here. Super common to, just want to pull billable time like by date range. We could do it by team lead, by invoice type, by project type, or if you do have that workflow in place of reviewing and approving time, let's check these boxes, make sure that when it comes time for, our billing person or a finance person to create this invoice, that all the time has been entered, it's been looked over by the right eyes, and is truly ready to be on that invoice. When we look at the screen here, we're able to see, 33 hours on this, total fees, total expenses, and that total unbilled work in progress. If you do need some final review, I think this is a great chance to drill down into this and just take a look at everything we have, right? Staffer, date, hours, notes, rate, amount. If you are, what I'll call like that big time power user or an admin or a financial admin, we can even give you this ability to go in and make these changes to the time entries right here. Again, that's always going to drive back to the security settings you put in place. We never want to expose things like bill rates, cost rates to the wrong people, right? So what we're looking at here, just myself as the admin, so I get, keys to everything. And could go down to that input level here, make some adjustments to this before it goes to the invoice if I need to. If not, and this is all ready to go, let's just pick it up, create an invoice. And what I'm doing here is what BigTime calls an item based, right? Which is where we say some of these phases we bill progress, some of these we bill percent complete, some of these we're just going to bill hourly. So when we create this invoice the first time, we need to select item based. As we move forward in here and do some other invoices on this, BigTime is going to remember what style that we need to invoice in, so we're not constantly having to, pick the same style every time. The way I have this set up, again, little gear wheel here lets us customize this invoice screen. I like to show that WIP summary. I like to show invoice percentages because it truly does vary how everyone does this, right? I think that project completion can be viewed in a few ways. Maybe that's how much have we actually input against that budget, right? So schematic design, we have 15K. I can see for this billing cycle based off of my input, I have $880 that we need to bill for. What you're seeing here is I've invoiced this project already, so we know that we're partially billed, and we're gonna, piggyback off of that. Great thing about this style of invoicing in BigTime is the relationship between these fields, right? If I know this is 880, I can come in and I can actually just bill 880 bucks, and it knows that that's going to take us up to 56%. That's a weird percentage to bill, so maybe we just want to bump this up to 75%. And then we know that that amount, based on previous billings and the budget, $37.50. Bill this, we'll take this up to 50. 25, maybe 5%. Why not? These expenses, I'm showing these like as ad services on top. We don't need to do that. Like I said, we can simply remove them. I mean, if they are getting absorbed into those initial budgets, totally dependent upon the project setup and the invoicing needs of you. We're going to come to a portion in this call here where a lot of doors for customization are going to open. I want to go through what I see as like a really standard approach to this, but would love it. Like I said, if anyone does have questions about this, like please shout them out. Happy to go through, some of your specific needs, make sure we can accommodate those as well. Invoice this. Not quite what the client's going to see just yet. This is for us, for our accounting team. These are invoice line items. In total, these are as they will appear when we push this over to QuickBooks. We get a final chance here to go through and do a quick review, right? All those time entries, all those expense entries, make sure everything is in place. And then we're going to work to get us out to the client by just putting it on a quick template. I've saved a template for the call today. We'll go through what it's like to customize these super quickly. But again, when this is a fully functioning account, when you're up and running and trained, you're going to get to this screen, kick this out to your pre-existing template, and be able to do a little zoom here. Take those line items. I've got a lot going on. We can pick and choose what fields we want to show on here, but definitely want to pick up those budgets. I like to show remaining, previously billed, and then this invoice, right? That T&M we do, add services, right down here. And then if you need to pick up that, all the detail for that T&M. And then just got a question, we need to show receipts. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, let's go through and customize this if we like that initial template, but we just need to add a couple fields to it. Perfect. You go to customize. Let's take that webinar template that we like, and let's just do a quick copy. Webinar template with receipts. Step 2, if we need to change any of those other fields while we're at it, I don't know if we picked up, we have our PO number, project name, maybe we want to put that due date on here. Appearance is going to let you do fonts, colors, footers, to customize as well. And then step 3 is all that detail that we get to pick and choose. So if we want to pick up receipt images, you bet, we'll keep all this budget status just the same. But here's a quick view of all of the fields that we can show there. Go to receipts, pick up receipts, hit save. And now we can kick this over to a webinar template with receipts. There we go, page 2. So picking up the expense detail on there, and then attaching those receipts, images, PDFs, what have you, if we need to bill those back to the client. All right, so at this point in the workflow, like I said, we've got this created. A quick preview here, just in case anyone likes this. We can preview in-app. We don't have to kick out to a PDF every time. So we have this created. We know how it needs to look to the client, but we got to get it out to them. BigTime can email this directly to them. Not a problem. That's myself, that I flagged as the billing contact. Maybe I want to CC Kara, my project manager, BCC, my finance team. If we need to attach any other documents, I think it's a great way to eliminate a step by getting those receipt images on there. But if there is anything else, we can attach docs as we email these. And then we need this to hit our accounting system, QuickBooks, if we're using that. If you're not, we'll manage payment on this in BigTime, not a problem. But to post this over to QuickBooks, everything's going to line up. I have some default items in place over here. Do a quick post to QuickBooks, and then once I update, give me about 10 seconds to do this. We'll be able to open my QuickBooks file and take a quick peek. Almost. Painful silence. If you're on QuickBooks Online, this tool is not necessary. QBO is just a straight cloud-to-cloud integration. You hit that sync button, it's right over there. With this desktop version, again, we just have to run through a quick tool, about 10 seconds or so. We can come over here, check out our customer list, and this was called, what was this called? Who here remembers my project or my client name? Architecture webinar, good. Probably right at the top. Got it, there we go. So again, this was all created in BigTime at the top of the call, but we push over that client, we push over that project, and we can see over here in QuickBooks, we have an invoice for a little over 17 grand. Right over here, check comes in, we record payment. We don't want to change that receivable part, right? QuickBooks is a great accounting system, so let's go ahead and just receive that payment in here. Let's say we got a check in, we've got a check number, and we'll pay this out in full. Great thing here is, this is to me where we can really work to like simplify that or streamline that communication, right? So it's one set of needs to know that, hey, this invoice has been paid, but then it's great to put that right information in front of the right project manager as well. So the payment recognition between BigTime and QuickBooks, super helpful. No one's gonna have to email finance or accounting or bother them and say, hey, can you tell me if this is paid? They just record the checks as they come in. And then once we are back in our BigTime account, we're going to have a quick view. I'm just back at that project dashboard where we started the call today. And I can go over here and just do a quick check on the billing history. One invoice that's unposted, but what we just did was successfully post that 17K. We see a $0 balance on here. We'll go right back to it, and then payment visibility between the two. So $0, activity feed is going to show us the entire history of this, if it went through a review and approval process as well. And then that payment that was applied in QB, check, reference number, all pushes back here into BigTime. If you are on more of the operations or project management side, probably not where we're going to be viewing this, right? A little bit of a different need set. So that's going to be a nice segue, I think, into the BigTime Report Center. Here in BigTime, we take the approach of giving you a handful of pre-built reports and then giving you the ability to create and customize, right? Not everyone has the same report needs. I've seen some systems out there in the past who will give you 200, 300 pre-built reports, but then you can't do anything with them, right? And if what you need to see doesn't line up with how they think you need to see it, you're kind of SOL. So BigTime, again, takes this approach of giving you a category, and then a handful of reports in each one, and then allows you to do those customizations as you go through. Super easy to use report editor here, no one has to be any sort of expert or code a new report. Let's go ahead and just pick up a phase list pre-built report in my budgeting and planning bucket. I think this is a great example of a little, quick customization. So we can check out, this is running on every project in my firm right now, but we can see each phase, budgets, input. We can do invoiced amounts per phase, and then what's left to be invoiced. So this is what I was mentioning of a great way to get the right information back to project managers without having to add any steps. But let's, maybe get a little bit more from this, right? We like the foundation here, but I don't see hours, right? And I kind of want to know how I'm burning through these hours that I've scoped out. Let's go ahead and create a copy of this. And report editor in BigTime is just going to let you click on this, add a new field, and we can scroll through and search. I mean, if it's a data field in BigTime, if it's even any of those custom fields that we add, it's probably a reportable field, right? We're going to have a ton of options of everything that we could add on a report. And right here you see total hours input, not quite what I'm looking for. So maybe I'll just do a quick search of my hourly estimate. All right, so we have hourly estimate, and then let's pick up that input. So total hours input to date, and then maybe show me remaining as well. Pick up estimate minus input. Got it. Maybe I don't want to run this for the entire company either. Maybe I just want to check out that project we're working on. We can say, let's just choose a project when we run this. We'll do a quick create report, give it a name, save it to a folder. And now when I run this, it's going to say, hey, pick the project you want. We want to look at our 311 South Wacker. Run this report. So again, all those initial fields we had over here, but now we can start tracking that hourly burn per phase. Estimate, input, remaining, budget, invoiced amounts as well. I was talking at the top of the call about, the right info, the right hands, like empowering project managers to do this. You know, we're not going to need to come through and you know, spend a ton of time like going through this report center and finding these in the right folder. You know, we can put that right in front of them. So when I go to edit this report, I can share a copy of this, and I have a few report groups set up in here. I'm going to give this to my project manager. Hit run. And then that way, when they log in, you know, I think in the real world, we're going to be logging into BigTime. We're going to need to, you know, access these pretty quickly, probably the same reports on like a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So that's where we're just going to go here to our report filter. We're going to go to my reports. So we don't need to get bogged down and like sifting through. My report folders are a nightmare in that account. I should have cleaned them up before the call, but I didn't because this is what I default to. These are the reports that I use on a regular basis. Here's that copy that I just created and shared with project managers. You know, we do have those security permissions in place around these groups so that, again, if you're not a project manager, you don't need that visibility. You just simply don't see this folder on your My Reports. And now I can come in here and have quick access to it. And just got a question here. Can we export reports? You bet. Anything in BigTime, we're going to be able to kick out of here as a PDF or Excel or Word doc as well. So if I go to my go-to report, just like a fee and hour burn here, pick our project, run it, just do that breakdown of fees and hours on this. We have an export button. PDF, Excel, or Word doc, you bet. There you go. I have someone else asking, sorry for the silence, I'm reading another screen. What's that profitability report? Awesome, that's another one of my favorites. I spoke to that a little bit when we were setting up the initial project and like grouping these by type. One of my favorite things to do is not just give you visibility on, you know, what is profitable, but then start grouping that by like the types of projects you're doing. And not only is it, you know, helpful to see, you know, what's making the most money, but also, you know, helpful to know what to bid on moving forward, right? So if I go back to my report folder and I go into my cost and profitability report, we're going to run this on the entire firm. Again, like I said, not to get bogged down on customization of these, but we can filter, we can subtotal differently, group these together by that project type, as I just mentioned. And what I'm doing on this report is factoring in my total input hours, that labor cost, when we set that cost on the staff record, expenses, billable amounts, invoiced amounts, and then margins, dollars and percents. So I do this per project, and then I roll up to the client as a whole, but totally customizable. However you need to see this, we'll be able to scope that out. All right, I have another message here. Good deal. Let's check the time. I think we're flying through this, but we're right on schedule. Thanks for sticking around. We covered a ton of stuff, right? And again, a little different for me to kind of speak to a group like this and not have a lot of that initial feedback. So I'm very appreciative of you taking the time to listen. Hope I was able to cover a lot of things that might be specific to you, and definitely know that you have some other questions, right? I'd love to hear from you. And again, just to kind of recap, everything that we did today was, covered that QuickBooks integration, bringing everything in that tech stack to a single point of entry, project setup, resource management, team assignments, budgets, estimates, allocations, Gantt charts, project visuals, segueing into the ability to manage all of your WIP super easily in BigTime, and then get that onto some extremely customizable invoices based on your needs, and then kind of wrapping up with that look at those real-time reports, how we share them, and how we put the right information in front of the right people.